Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can head on over there and go pick up some books. So, in last week's session, we did a little piece of improvisational artwork based on a comment in the chat about drawing a demonic centaur. So I called him a helltar. And in the process of drawing this, there were little bits and pieces of horse anatomy, drawing the hands, little things where I said, if I were doing this properly, like if this was something that I wasn't live streaming, that what I would do is I would look up some research. I would research some reference, because that I do definitely believe in using reference. Using reference is absolutely not cheating. It's an integral part of the illustration creative process. So, and I see we've already got people streaming into the chat. I see Red there. Hey chat. Hey Red, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. So this is a follow-up. One of the things that we discussed last week is how I would normally pull some reference in order to do this image. So what I'm going to do is I have the finished piece that I did last week up on the screen, and I'm going to show you how I would go about pulling up reference in order to do this illustration properly, or rather to refine elements. Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that while I am a firm believer in reference, I am also a firm believer that the illustration should lead the reference, not that the reference should lead the illustration. And what I mean by that is I would normally do a bunch of thumbnails to work out the pose for this figure. And then I would look for images or pieces of reference that would capture the angles and the anatomy that I'm trying to illustrate. So as opposed to just looking for a piece of artwork, a piece of photo reference or some sort of inspirational image, and then trying to draw mine to match that image. Let's see here. Red mentions, I was busy working on concept art for my dream comic or graphic novel. All right, I'm glad to hear you're being productive. And Jay King is in the chat, says, what's good, brother? People, it is all good. We're doing a reference research episode. And I may get to doing a little bit of drawing after this, but I'll kind of walk you through. I am at a little bit of a disadvantage because since I relocated to my new studio, I don't have all of my reference tools I would normally have. For instance, let me flip over to my photos. So this little gray guy here is a digital model, and I have an app that has this digital model in it that I can pose at different angles. But what I actually prefer to do in real life is I actually have a male and female physical action figure that basically looks like these guys, anatomically sculpted, but with limited detail, but very jointed. They can take almost any pose that a human could take in real life. And what I usually would like to do is I like to pose them in real life, light them from the angles I want, and photograph them. So that's a big part of my normal reference process. That's more when I'm doing comics and I want to just get a quick pose for a character or a quick angle. I'll just pose them in the pose I want, and I'll actually be able to move it as far or as close near to the camera as I need it to be to get the angle that I look. And they just snap a photo. I've got that for my reference. And I don't usually drop it in and trace it. I'll just have that on a screen somewhere next to me while I'm drawing. But that's a big part of my process here. And I also see Paul, great comic creator Paul Pate in the chat. He's here. Good to see you as always. And he says, "Hey, keep working at it." I think encouraging Red on Red's dream comic, and Red also asks, "Why don't you just exaggerate anatomy?" And that's very very simple. Stylistic choice. I am not against exaggerating anatomy. I have no problem with exaggerated anatomy at all. Um, I really like someone like. Let me go back to the illustration. I really like work like Joe Madeira, Joe Mad. His anatomy is very exaggerated, very huge, muscular characters. And you also said, exaggerate like cartoon. People like Bruce Timm, or let's say somebody like Cheeks, Sean Galloway. People that are more cartoony. I very much love their artwork and I love their style. So I don't have anything against exaggerating. It's just a personal choice. When I tend to draw, I'm not going for realism, but I would say that I'm more of an illustrator, which is that in between the exaggeration of cartooning and photorealism. Somewhere in the middle is an illustrative look. And that's more about how I tend to draw naturally. And there's people who I really admire, like, Bill Sienkiewicz is one of my biggest influences. And he is somebody who can go to polar extremes. Like he can very much do and does do photorealistic portraits of characters in a comic. And right next to it, we'll have something cartoony that looks like we're straight out of a Tex Avery cartoon. So it doesn't mean I won't ever experiment with cartooning and play. Paul in the chat. Paul says, I always exaggerate anatomy. Ask my wife. You're killing me, Paul. Oh man, you are awesome. I love that. But what it comes down to, Red, is it's personal choice and personal preference. If I were doing a project where it would serve the art for me to intentionally exaggerate anatomy, then I would do so. But I don't consciously go out of the way to have an exaggerated style. So it just comes down to your personal preference, your personal choice, and what the project you're working on recommends, what it needs. You have to listen to the project. Some things may not work with a cartoony style, or some things may not work with a realistic style. And by the same token, you can enhance the power of the story by doing something in a style that is counter to what you would expect it to be. So, and Red said, "Dang, is a joke that good?" I mean, for me, maybe it's just an old man joke, old man humor, but like dad type humor. But for me, that hit in the sweet spot. Self-deprecating humor, I think, always works well with older gentlemen. So I was like, yeah, that nailed it for me. Not every joke is for every person. Yeah. Okay, so also beyond, I'm going to switch to the big camera just for a second so you can see, because this is an itty bitty, it's really blown out because of light, but it is a tiny little skull that I have. And I actually have a life-sized skull. So a skull, a human, a replica, of course. I don't just have skulls laying around my house, but I have a replica of a life-size skull that's in storage. And that is another part of my reference. Basically, my reference begins with those two little figures, the gray figures, and then my life-size skull. I've just got this little guy here now until I can get my full-size skull out of storage. But I start with those two, and usually I like to, if it's ever at all possible, I will shoot my own reference as opposed to looking up reference online. So after posing those guys, sometimes I'll put on maybe a jacket or a piece of clothing, or for instance, with this hand here, I'm not going to take the time to, because we're sitting here live streaming, taking a photo at the angle that I would need to do to do like this hand, or actually, you know what? That's not really a crazy idea. That hand that's holding that's holding the spear, I could honestly just take a screen capture of the tiny little square of me and use that. Like that's something right there that we're gonna do that right now because this whole point is showing you how I do reference. So I might as well go here, large, and let's say you can see trying to show more of the fist. I'm kind of tweaking it out at the angle. Let's see here. Yeah, it's weird to get the angle that I want. But let's say I just go like this, get a screen cap. What I really need is actually something from the angle that I'm looking at it at from. And that's what I'm going to do. I am going to switch back to here real quick. I'm just going to take a picture of my hand. Red says yes. Small skull, tiny little guy. I think I got that from some weird model that I purchased years ago. But let's see here. Oh, this is actually a really good shot because this can show you almost exactly. Yeah, I'm going to send this to my tablet so that you guys can see. Let's see here. There we go. See, so on my screen, I actually put my hand in front of the illustration, so I can kind of have it in the same shot. And realistically, again, I know this is kind of the irritating perfectionist thing, but I am going to go back to the illustration and I'm going to take one more only because what I should be doing is seeing a little bit more of the underside. So I need to turn my, yeah, let's do that. I like the first photo better, but there's something about getting well, see, now that's, you know what? Yeah, I'll send both of them. So, whenever possible, you want to take photos yourself. But the next step then after that is pulling things. I had to tell you, even though this photo is showing more of the underside, which is kind of what I want out of the image, there's something about this photo that just works better for me. So I am going to split screen. Let's see here. Will this let me just drag over? All right. Now let's go back over here. Let's go back to full screen. And the split screen is going to come in really handy because what I'm going to do is once I get all of my reference into this image, I can just take this, save this, and then put that in the photo section and have that open on the left side of my screen while I'm drawing. And hey, let's see here. Katie Cat, hello. Yes, we are continuing with the Hell Centaur. Red says your art reminds me of those comics in the old days that just invented digital painting. I mean, like kind of like late 90s illustration. I mean, that kind of makes sense because I started reading comics in the beginning of the 90s. Like literally, I was reading when the Image founders were like, not when they first broke in, but when they first started like doing mainstream Marvel and DC work and getting larger. And I kind of like got to read comics during the rise of the Image creators and the launch of Image. So it makes sense that I would definitely be influenced by a lot of 90s comics art. Let's see here. All right. Oh, so the next step, actually looking up images online. So yes, I don't have a horse. So that makes it hard to pull up horse reference. So what I did is I will go through and so I will type in horse, if I could spell, rearing up, and then I'll do a Google image search. And then what I'll do is I will switch the license to Creative Commons license. So that way I'm not pulling from copyrighted images. And also, if I can't find anything I'd like, I have a couple of different websites that I tend to use to pull reference images. They're all royalty-free stock houses. So I'll use Pexels, Pixabay, and Unsplash. And they all tend to have a little bit of overlap. There's times when I've seen places that will have similar images, like the same image will appear across some of these websites. But what I'll usually do is just kind of scroll through here and try to find some photos that look like the angle that I need. In fact, this is probably another one where it's useful to go back to the split view. That way I can have this open. Let's see. And even though these are Creative Commons images, I think some of these are like illustrations that some artists have posted. So I don't want to use any of that. Let's see here. This one on Pexels doesn't look bad. It's not as forward as I would like. But sometimes what I'll do is I will see here. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just collect images as I go and then kind of filter them out in terms of like which ones really do satisfy the needs. Because otherwise, trying to go back and forth and trying to find one later once I've already passed it is a pain in the ass. So it's easier to just dump a bunch of photos into a file as you're going and then come back later. Let's see here. And Katie says, I forgot the royalty free stock houses exist. Yeah, I mean, I actually, when I do design work and I actually need images that I have to pay for, I have a Shutterstock account and I'll use that. If I can't find whatever I need and I'm doing either client work or if I'm doing a personal work and I absolutely need a specific image, then I'll go buy it. It's not that I'm above or against purchasing images. But like I said, where I can, I'll shoot my own reference. And where I can't, I try to find, like I said, work that's under Creative Commons, work that I can use and as inspiration to sketch off of or anatomical reference and just, find the details. And that's another thing. You're not going to find an image that is exactly what you need for a specific illustration. But what you can do is you can find bits and pieces, like a hand that you need, um, a detail of a horse's hooves, you know, a body of a horse that's at an angle that is useful for you. Now, this one is at a better angle, but it's very, very dark. Um, not, it's a little bit too straight on. And I really did pose this as a 3/4 shot. So I think I am going to, although hang on, I see a black and white photo in here that actually looks helpful. But other than this, I'm going to try now going over to some of the stock free sites or the royalty free stock sites. This one is a little bit better. And also, it tells me as much as I liked that image of having the hooves kind of kicking up like that. I mean, I guess part of that is that, I wanted it to be more of an aggressive pose. But maybe that isn't necessarily realistic. And you find that out sometimes with reference, is that you will have a pose that you want to use, a pose you drew in your thumbnails, and then you will look at your reference and be like, why does this look so weird? And you just be like, you know what? I can't do that pose. It just does not work. It's not realistic. Or it's so far out of the realm of realism that it breaks the image you're trying to do. That happens sometimes, and that's okay. It's okay to the process of going from thumbnail to reference to finished image is a conversation. Like I said, your thumbnails inform the type of image and the type of reference that you pull. But then that reference will make you say, "Oh, there's an anatomical detail I had wrong here." Um, that reference may also make you say, "I want to push or change some of these things." And maybe you do want to do something that isn't realistic, but it really is the essence of what you're going for. Now, here is a photo that's under Creative Commons, and this pose that the horse is doing is more in line with what I was thinking. So I'm going to grab this one too. No, I don't want that. Let's see if this will paste. All right. So I think we've got enough with the horse images. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just go and take a look at maybe Unsplash or Pexels and see if they've got something that that works. Let's see here. Katie Cat says, I've been working on a piece that depicted how a monster would look if it were a spirit animal. It's called Primitive Long Arms from Scrape and Run Parasites. And they say the reference collection process was very similar to this. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is just going through, trying to find things that fit what you want, lining them up. And I will also mention, because Amar has frequently brought up the PureRef app, and I do not have anything against the PureRef app. I think that at the time I looked, they either didn't have an app for the iPad, or using it in the browser and having it up while I was working just didn't seem like it was conducive to my workflow. So I'm not against that. All of these things are finding things that work for you. And what works for me best is to either have a bunch of images open in the actual document I'm illustrating when I'm doing my thumbnailing, or to just have it, like I said, split screen. And on the left side, I've got a single image that has all of my reference. And then on the right, I've got my drawing area. That's what works best for me now, and it doesn't mean I won't change. That's the other thing. Um, Workflows change over time. They may change with the needs of a specific project. They may change just in terms of how you work 1 year. A couple years later, you're like, oh, I like this a little bit better. I have different needs. And it's okay to be, in fact, it's encouraged to be flexible about these kind of things. So let's see if Unsplash has anything with horses rearing up. Let's see. Very beautiful images of horses, but nothing with horses rearing up. And the last thing that I'm going to look at, I'm going to look at maybe, I may end up looking at all of these real quick, just pasting in the same search term. And then the last thing I'm going to look up is bodybuilders because I want to go for a really, you know, husky, hulky upper body for the man part of the centaur. Got some nice illustrations, silhouettes of horses rearing up. Now, this one right here is a good pose. It's just leaning too far forward, as opposed to what I wanted. And this is one of those where it's such a good photo. I would consider adapting my image to having the centaur leaning more forward. I don't think I'm going to, but I will copy this image just to have it. Yeah, I think after this, I'm going to switch to looking at for bodybuilders because we're already a good almost half hour into this and I haven't really drawn anything. And I wanted to show you, oh, this is what I kind of do once I get that reference up. This is a really good pose, but again, it's not giving me the three quarters that I want. Anyways, this process would go on and on until I found everything I wanted. But again, for the sake of being live with you guys, I'm going to move on. Let's go to body builder. And I guess the main thing that I want is a three-quarter view looking up at the bodybuilder. This one isn't quite it in terms of what I want, but I do kind of like this pose. Well, hang on, before I do that, oh no, let's just keep going. All right. Got that in there. All right, I think I've gone through about everything that's possibly usable there. Let's go back to the Google search. Let's try bodybuilding here. Katie Cat is definitely enjoying this process. Um, well, again, like I always say, what I enjoy about live streaming is not showing. It sounds counterintuitive, but everyone wants to see the beautiful, finished, awesome piece of artwork. No one wants to see the grunt work, and I'm all about sharing the grunt work. Let's see here. So let's see. My search status is still on Creative Commons. And actually, this one looks pretty good. Now, if I could really find one of someone leaning backward, that would be ideal. This one is pretty good. Copy image. All right, so maybe I'll look for one more and then we will move away from the reference, or rather, move away from the searching for reference and move to the implementation. And this is one of those things where, again, having, you know, photographing your own reference, not that I'm a bodybuilder, but being able to photograph a figure at the exact angle that you need them helps a lot. Because I intentionally would be using a worm's eye view looking up. And you feel like actually a bodybuilding competition would be a perfect place to get a shot like that, where they're up on the stage and you're shooting them from the floor. All right. I think, let me just take one quick look and see if there's anything in pixels that's decent. Some very, very beautiful shots, but I don't see anything that's specifically at the angle that I want. You know what? As long as we're using art tools, I might as well. Let's see if I have that app on my desktop. Let's go back over here. Full screen. Red says, I'm back. Sorry, I was putting together references, even though I'm not using them nor looking at it. Hey, this is a whole episode about reference. So if you're looking for reference while we're doing it, all the better. I'm trying to remember the name of that app that I'm using for art reference. Let's see here. Productivity. Where is that thing? Oh, here we go. That is so strange. There's a whole art app that seems to be missing. Hang on just a sec. You guys can look at my Paul says, need some abs? I've got lots. Not very muscular though. Well, you know what? You and me both, buddy. Okay, here we go. It's just changing screens in case I had something in case I had something nefarious on my machine that I was not aware of. Um, let's see here. All right, so I have an app called Art Pose Pro. And I can't remember how much I paid for this app, but it was less than 20 bucks. Super reasonable. So this is the guy when I showed you at the beginning that I had a little gray model to work from. And you can take these guys, you can bulk him up. There's like a slider you can go bulky, or you can go kind of scrawny and emaciated. So I'm going to bulk him up. Let's see here. And I'm going to kind of pose him. You know what? Again, with the split screen. Now, this may make it difficult to control because I, have this don't have as much room. Like sometimes there's controls for these apps that are off to the side, and switching to split screen makes it difficult. And they do have some stock poses that are built into the figures that you can choose from. But I'm not going to do all of that. Let's see here. So they give you control points. You see all these little red dots on here. These are points that you can grab and then twist at that joint. So what I'm doing is you press once to select the joint that you want, and then you just drag up, down, left, right, whatever you want. And then in here, there are stock poses. These are some pretty good stock poses too. See if there's any that are close to what I need. Okay. So now we're back at the angle that we had before, but with the stock pose. And I need to turn, nope, that's not what I want. I want to go back to the camera controls because this feels like it's a little bit too extreme. Oh, well, that's the thing right there. I've got him like, let's see here. Yeah. Katie's like a T pose. Yeah, it starts off with a standard T pose, and you can just manipulate it into what you need. And Red says, I got abs too. Only one. Well, then you have ab. You don't have abs. You have singular ab. All right, let me just get this posed real quick so we can move forward. But anyway, I like this app. It gives you simple. I'm trying to figure out how to. Oh, there we go. I was trying to figure out how to twist the arm so it's going forward more. There we go. Because getting it into the exact pose that I want, that could be a process. And I don't want to sit here and spend all day doing that, particularly when I've got all this other reference kind of set up there. And you could take the hand, and even the hand, you can go in there and the hand comes with stock poses. This is actually a pretty good reference app. There we go. And the only other thing I need to do is I need to, no, that's twisting that way. What I want is to bend forward more. Oop, other way. It's close enough. All right, let's export this guy. And there's lighting options in here as well. I forget exactly where the option is, just tell it, just save a screenshot to the photos. So I am just going to save some time here and just take a screenshot so I can drop it in. I can just copy, go back over here, full screen. Yeah, the reference process can be elaborate. And now from here, I can just go and cut out everything that I need. Yes. Red is like, yeah, only one ab. You know what? I mean, hey, fitness is a thing for all of us. I am getting back into the habit of going hiking regularly with my wife, which is really important. But we all can't be Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? Paul says, I like how the light source works in this drawing. The underside of the horse is all silhouette. Well, I mean, I was thinking, once I decided that there was going to be flames up top, I'm like, well, then, yeah, I've kind of got to cut or, make everything is lit on the underside. So I definitely feel like the lighting should lead the composition. And that doesn't mean that I'm against artificial lighting or where you're rendering the image in a way that is counter to what is realistically given the light source. I don't have a problem with that, But when I am left to my own devices, what I try to do is create something that where the lighting dictates how I'm going to how I'm going to light the rest of the image. So at this point, I think I can turn off the image up there, and I can just what I like to do now. The last step before actually getting in and doing some illustration is just moving all of these pieces around, cutting out what I don't need, and sort of organizing them into one sheet. Move that up there. I'm gonna try and move all the bodybuilders to the bottom, all the horses to the top. All right, let's see. I'm going to have 3 tiers of reference here. Start moving the horses up. Let's see here. Katie Cat says, I'm still in awe that I was responsible for the inspiration for this fabulous piece is based on. Well, I mean, that goes back to the conversation that we had last week about how inspiration takes many different forms. And yeah, you just made a humorous offhand comment and I ran with it. And I appreciate the contribution. I've been meaning to do a post about this or a video about this for years, but nope, that's not what I want. What I wanted to do is invert and cut. People often ask artists, where do they get their ideas from? And you guys know this, but maybe people who are non-artists would not know. I always tell people that ideas are just thoughts. And if for anyone who has ever tried meditation, just try to not think. It's nearly impossible. In fact, that's the main thing I've taken away from meditation is that it's not about emptying your mind. It's about releasing the thoughts, letting the thoughts exist, acknowledging their existence, and then letting them pass over you and around you and through you. But where I'm going with this is that inspiration and ideas are kind of the same way. You have a thought, whatever it is, and maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea. It's not necessarily about coming up with ideas. It's about finding interesting things to do with those thoughts. Because you can have a dozen ideas that sound stupid, but then somebody thinks of an interesting way to execute that idea and something that, for all its purposes, everyone would say that's a loser idea. That's dumb. Someone comes up with a unique take on it or a unique way to execute it, and all of a sudden you've got something like, I don't know, Seth Rogen's Sausage Party, which, yeah, not the high bar of like a cinematic masterpiece, but it's a fun, entertaining film off of what is ostensibly a very stupid idea. And that's sort of my view of the creative process in general. It's just being open to those different possibilities and how they may execute. And just because I'm trying to save space here with this sheet of reference, I'm going to go in and I'm going to crop the lady out of this because I really just need him. No disrespect, ma'am. Let's invert and cut. What I like to do is just get a bunch of tiers of reference set up. Let's take this guy. Take my little figure, bring him down over, and take these three together. So I've got like a layer down here with this trio. I've got a layer with the bodybuilder and two horses. And I can move these down here, give me a little bit of space. And I can go up here. Now, the image with my fist does not particularly need to be that big, but I can move that far horse over and then take these other ones and enlarge them. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to do is take the ones that are facing the wrong way and flip them. Because again, you want to take that reference and manipulate it to match your illustration and your ideas, not forcing your ideas into match what you're, what the reference is giving you. Let's see here. Oops. Stylus is trying to make a break for it. So let's see here. Katie says, thank you very much. So much. You're very welcome. And Paul says your episode of the Artcasters was very inspiring. Well, you know what? Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad to hear it. It's always fun talking with those guys. And you know what? I keep saying that I'm going to hook up with you to do an episode. And I actually do want to ask you about your process. When I get, we'll save it for a stream where we can hook up and talk. But I was going to ask about the children's book that you recently started in terms of getting into the inspiration, how it's different from the comics work, but it looks very cool so far, the couple of pages you've posted starting out. So I will circle back with you and we're going to have a conversation about that. Everyone's going to get to hear from the amazing Paul Pate. Let's see here. Katie says, especially when you have ADHD, your default network can never turn off. So thoughts all the time. I honestly really did feel like maybe I had ADHD when I was younger because that what they call the monkey mind, where your mind is constantly racing. That was something that I very much suffered from earlier in life. And I think drawing actually helped me tame it because drawing was a place where that loud roar of thoughts and consciousness I could just funnel it into where whatever it was, I could just hear it and release it and go back to what I'm doing. And I think that's one of those challenging things to get to in terms of what you do with your work, or allowing you to actually proceed with work. And Katie says, I love adapting my stupid ideas. It's like, you find more interesting stuff than the ones that just on their surface sound brilliant and straightforward. Let's see here. James is here. Says I had to move my car that had a faulty starter put in it. Oh man, that sucks. And starter motors are not cheap. That's a definitely a pain in the ass. Let's see. It says Rockwell, huh? Well, yeah, figured I was following up on the conversation we had last week, and I said I would use or pull reference for the centaur I was drawing. So I said, let's get into my reference pulling process here. And see here, James says some good poses there. It's just a reference, and maybe you have an idea, but you need reference to help visualize it. And I will tell you that I do believe in being able to draw and come up with things out of your head. But even when you're drawing to come up with things out of your head, you have to have years and years of observational drawing experience in order to really make those things feel volumetric. So I believe in using reference. And I believe that reference is absolutely not cheating. I believe that there are strengths to being able to formulate and create things in your mind, but none of these things are either or. And that's one of the things I always really try to get across, is that people always tell you that there's one way to do things. And I believe that they're all just a buffet of creative tools to use, and you use tools based on what you need, what you want, what is helpful to you. And if something that's a tried and true method isn't helping you, then you got to set it aside and find the thing that will help you. Let's see here. Katie says, yes. Drawing functions as hyperfixation for you then? I would say absolutely so. That is me. That is very much what I've used it for throughout my life. And a shout out, rest in peace, James Car Starter. So we're pretty much at an hour, and as opposed to diving into a full-on new illustration, which would take a very long time, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to export this. This may end up being a part 3, but let's save this to my photos. Let's go back to that blank document. Oh, well, this is the blank document. I just realized that I've got my reference pulled up in here. I'm going to take all of this reference. I'm going to group it, turn it off, create a new layer. Let's make this background color a little bit darker. Let's sketch in a dark red, and then I can draw black into it. Now, I can go over to the photos, open the reference over here. And now I can have my reference sheet open while sketching a new version of the centaur. Drop the opacity a little bit lower. So again, these things work purely as inspiration. And from here, redrawing this now with reference available, not that much different from how I started it the first time. But I will say that I'm probably pulling more inspiration. Like, out of all of these that I'm looking at, the ones that are the most helpful to me is this one for the pose of the body of the horse, and then this one for that one foreleg that's raised. And I think what I'll probably do is basically combine these legs, the four legs, one up, one down, with the body of this one. But like I said, this is a full, we've gone a full hour just in terms of pulling reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it here for the day. And next week we'll do part 3, which is going to be redrawing with reference this time, and we'll see how it looks. I already feel like I'm going a little bit wonky here with the legs, not getting the gesture that I want. So I need to come back to this with some focus and really work on the gesture. It's too late in the stream for me to get into the flow, because sitting here and working and getting out the gesture just right the way I want it, that alone is probably going to take another good half hour, because guys know how I am. I'm nitpicky with the gestures. I'm nitpicky with everything. But I think that for those of you who have your own gesture workflows or reference workflows, hopefully this was interesting. I might have shared some stuff that you're like, oh, maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe if you don't use reference, then maybe this will open it up to some different approaches. But like I always said, the idea and your thumbnail sketches should definitely be foremost. You want you to be starting with the idea of what you want to create, and then let the reference build out of that. All right, guys, let me come back to the last couple of comments here, and we'll call it a day. So Lot Cog OG, I'm gonna have to figure out how you like people to respond to your handle, because that's let's just say Lot Cog, but that's what I'm calling you for now. You tell me how you want me to refer to you, because it looks like it is a long, elaborate handle that you've got there. But they say I should probably start using references, since everyone says to use reference, but such a drag to find references. Well, that, like I said, it took me most of this stream, let's say a good, 40 minutes, to pull up all of the reference that was here. Now, mind you, I stopped, answered questions, and rambled a bit. And I also showed some of the reference tools that I have personally. But when this stream is over, go back and watch the beginning. And maybe watching this stream from beginning to end, the point of it is to show you how I search for reference. Maybe that'll make you feel like, oh, it's a little bit of extra grunt work, but it's grunt work that will save you time in the long run. And at the end, we'll compare this reference version that I'm going to draw. I'll work on this next week. We'll compare the reference version to the one that I drew without reference, and we'll see what you guys think. Maybe you're like, reference is a waste of time. Maybe you guys would be like, it's an improvement. Reference is a good thing. We should use that. So we'll see what you guys think. And Paul says, would love to chat anytime. Say when and I'm there. Okay. All right. I'm definitely going to follow up with you this time, because I've been meaning to for way too long. Katie says, true. In my opinion, artists should have a balance of reference and imagination. Both are skills that, like muscles, require constant maintenance and progressive overload. One should practice both consecutively. You and I are on the same page. I'm feeling you. See here. James says, I prefer having reference material off to the side so I don't have to go back and forth. I've used a tablet when I was working in 3D. Well, yeah, actually, that's very true. I'm doing this process specifically because I'm showing you the work, the reference. Ordinarily, I would just have my entire tablet as my drawing surface, and I would have my reference up on the monitor in front of me that I'm using for streaming. So I do actually prefer having as much drawing space as possible. Sometimes when I'm sketching, like if I'm in front of the TV and I'm sketching, then I'll do the split screen like I'm doing here, and I'll just have the reference off to the side and have a small drawing area. But yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. And Byron says, I'm exceedingly late. How's it going? It's been a good stream. I was a little bit afraid that you guys would be bored by the reference research process, but I think we had fun. I think we made it interesting, a little interesting conversation, getting into the places that I go to pull things from. So we always have a good time, no matter what we're doing. So it's been a good stream. And Paul says, enjoyed the stream today. Thank you. James says, I prefer having reference material off. Oh, wait, I just read that. Sorry. I think it posted it twice. But let's see. Oh, yeah, I think maybe your comments weren't coming through, and for some reason Facebook is reposting it multiple times. But yes, always good to have you here, James. And again, bummer about the starter motor. Hope that is all squared away. Katie says, thank you. Katie Cat says, thank you for the fabulous stream. Thank you, as always, for the great conversation and for showing up. You guys are the ones that make this worthwhile and fun to be here and to engage and interact with you guys. Byron says, good old-fashioned Jeremy perfectionism. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I'm going to get on a roll. I'm going to break this perfectionism habit. I'm just going to start drawing. I'm going to be wilding out with the art. I'm just going to go crazy. All right. All right, and Lotcog says Lotcog is great. All right, that's what we're going with. I always try to check people's handles because sometimes people have handles or names that I'm not sure how to pronounce, and I always like to give people their due respect and refer to them the way they wish to be referred. But hopefully, if this is your first live stream, you'll subscribe to the channel so you'll get notified. Hit that notification bell, and you'll know when we go live with the next one. We usually do them Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Most weeks, Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we do live streams and we just draw, talk about art process, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Fun times as always. James says, plus, if you have a lot of reference material that you've used in the past, you can go back and use it later if you need it. And that's one great tip, James. Two is that's especially useful if you're doing a series, if you're doing a comic book or if you're doing a piece of artwork series. Very, very handy. And Katie Cat asks if I watched Chroma Mona's videos yet. And yes, I did watch a couple of videos. I did not watch the Traveler's Notebook one yet, but they had a couple of videos that I thought were pretty interesting, and I dug into those. So thank you again for the recommendation. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. As always, I appreciate you guys hanging out. If you know other people that are fans of art and creative process, share the video with them, forward it to them. I definitely appreciate all the help spreading the word about the work that I'm doing and the work that I'm sharing with you guys. Hit those like buttons, let everybody know. And if you want to get more live streams, twice a month, we do bonus live streams. They're usually 2 hours, 2.5, sometimes 3 hours long. I think the longest we did was a 5-hour one. But we call them artist office hours, and I do a thing called Art Book Study Group where I do deep dives to some of the best art books around, try to suck out all the knowledge we can. You get access to those for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. You sign up and you'll immediately get access to hundreds of hours already of the archive of the Art Book Study Group videos. There's videos where we're doing studies from George Bridgman, Andrew Loomis, Ken Holtgren, doing animal studies, on and on and on. Just going in, and I show you my process for how I'm doing ongoing studies to improve my own craft. You also get access to a digital archive where you can read my comics online, and a Patreon-exclusive Discord server where we share art process, works in progress, tips, feedback, encouragement, shop talk, and more. It's a continuation of the conversation we have here throughout the week in between the public live streams. So again, head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy and join. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of comics that I am the creator of, like Eye of the Gods, my first graphic novel I self-published, it's a psychological thriller. It's a standalone book about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or my most recent comic book series, Morning Star. It's a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. So it's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, script excerpts, thumbnails, page layouts, photo reference, and more. I basically show you how I put the whole book together. You can check out all of those. They're also available on Kindle if you read digitally. And if you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, there are book flip throughs to check out the books, see what's inside before you pick them up. All right, guys, again, thank you so much for being a part of our community, hanging out, spending time with me. Hopefully this is encouraging for you. That's it for now. Go be creative.